Welcome back to the TalknShoot Boxing Podcast. I'm Miguel Iturrate, and we're back here to talk some shoot about the world of boxing and our favorite sport of pugilism here. The bottom line is I look back here at the archives, and this is podcast number 62. So we've had a couple that we've done already, and I had to go back to about 50 something, 56. Before we talked about the pound for pound, so I think it's time to revisit the pound for pound list. And when I look back at what the pound for pound list that I put out, and that was in December 2017. So we're looking at about 5 months, maybe 6 months here since the last time we went ahead and did a pound for pound. So it's a situation where I'm just going to read out what my pound for pound list was in December 2017. I'm not saying I'm any expert more than anybody else or anything like that. This is a combination of the guys I like plus my theories on what make up a pound for pound list. So a guy like Canelo may have a great record and stuff, but I'm not putting him on here because he has a few gaps in his game that just don't make him a complete fighter, and that's what I think I'm looking for the most here. So back in December 2017, at number 1, I had Terence Crawford. Number 2, I had Vasyl Lomachenko. Number 3, I had Jorge Linares. And Linares and Lomachenko are coming off a pretty classic battle this last weekend. So something to talk about there. Number 4, I had Guillermo Rigondeaux. Rigondeaux will no longer be on this list. And I love him, but Lomachenko dispatched him since then. So, we're talking about some activity at the very top of the list, and we'll see how all that goes. If you consider my list, the fact is that Vasyl Lomachenko's beat, 2 of the top 5 pound for pound fighters in the world today, right now on that list. Number 5, I had Mikey Garcia. Number 6, I had Leo Santa Cruz. Number 7, Gary Russell Jr. Number 8, Carl Frampton. Number 9, Sor Rungvisai. And number 10, Gennady Golovkin. So, let's get into it. Let's see how this changes a little bit because, should we start from the bottom or should we start from the top? How should we start this? Let's start from the top. I'm not going to change Crawford. And, most lists at this point, I'm willing to bet any perusal of any lists out there are going to have Lomachenko at number 1. And, it's a situation where it's like, I can understand that. And I think a lot of people, even, people like Frank Latirzo, who's a buddy of mine, that we do talk a lot of boxing on the boxing channel. And the bottom line is he's always been a Crawford fan. He's got Crawford number 1, and he doesn't knock anybody that has Lomachenko number 1 either. And based on my own list, what I just showed you, which, Lomachenko beat Rigondeaux and Linares, both of whom I had very highly rated, then you could almost argue making the switch. And Lomachenko is number 1 and was number 2 on Springs Toledo and his, pound for pound list that they work on over at the Transnational Boxing Rankings there. So they actually did it. They, based on however they do it, they moved Lomachenko over Terence Crawford. Now, in about 3 weeks, we got Terence Crawford in Las Vegas fighting Jeff Horn. And, most people think that Crawford will walk out of that with the WBO World Welterweight title. It's hard to argue that. I think I saw it was a minus 1375 favorite at the books today. So Horn expected to come up, to Vegas, get a payday, go home back to Australia without the belt. We'll see. Crawford's got to get the job done in the ring, and I don't think Horn's going to die easy. That's one of those things. It's like Horn's one of those guys I think is a tough guy, and but it could look a lot like Roy Jones Jr. versus Vinny Pazienza too. You know what I mean? And just if Crawford's that good, and I do credit him with that, Crawford's embarrassed people up until now. And the thing is Horn might be 160 when he gets into this fight, and I don't know where Crawford will be. Crawford's coming up. I don't expect to be 148. I expect to be about 160 as well. I'm figuring, but I don't know. Is Horn going to be able to rough him up a little bit? Is Horn going to be able to get inside, rough him up, move him back? Just a Crawford fights so well from every spot, and that's why he's number one. So we expect him to get the welterweight title on his resume this weekend, and that'll be another weight class for Crawford. He'll be 33-0, and I think it's one of those situations where I'm going to leave him where he is at number one. Lomachenko, I had him at number two. So we can't really argue with the way the science goes on this one. Lomachenko is going to stay at number two with a real claim to number one. You could call it that. At this point, he's got 12 fights. It's starting to be a little more decent. When this conversation, when he was at about 8 fights and people were already crowning him on pound for pound list and stuff, and but again, because of the quality of competition, what he's been doing, he's been winning over some of the naysayers. So he's going to stay at number two, and I think that's pretty solid. I'm going to go over to BoxRec and see what BoxRec has for their rankings, even though yeah. I mean, look at what they have. Saul Alvarez number one. A guy suspended for drugs is their number one guy. And then Lomachenko, and then Crawford. It's ridiculous. But, it doesn't matter. We'll talk about Alvarez towards the end of the list and how he's not on it. And I'll explain that to all of you as well here. But you had Lomachenko and Crawford, with Lomachenko edging Crawford by a few points on whatever their mathematical system is here. So, that's what bothers. So we're talking about the right two guys. Let's just say it that way. The right two guys are in the number one spot. If you're talking about Crawford, Lomachenko, Crawford, most people are going to have Lomachenko, Crawford at this point. I'm going to be a hard-headed, and I'm going to leave Crawford number one. He hasn't done anything to lose the number one spot, so we're gonna go from there. Now at 3 and 4, I had Linares and Rigondeaux, and that's obviously going to change. And the real simple change is going to be this. I'm going to bump up number 5, which is Mikey Garcia, right to 3. And Garcia is going to be in the number 3 spot. I think right there we've got a good lock on the top 3 boxers on the planet right now. And that's Crawford, Lomachenko, and Mikey Garcia. Garcia moved up, has done a convincing job at 140 pounds, and he wants to come back down to lightweight. And, I don't know. I don't like... Let's just say my experience isn't totally in boxing with the movement of the weight classes and stuff. People managing weight classes a lot different nowadays, especially with the wide range of them and with the perceived value of grabbing a bunch of world titles, in a bunch of weight classes with, Mayweather and Pacquiao, leading the league and trying to bounce back and forth and stuff. But if you're a young guy and you're a healthy guy, and, you can manage a weight between 135 and 140 for competition, that makes him very dangerous to come back down to the weight class, because he's not coming back down either, because he got beat up, or, because, things didn't go his way, or because, it's a shot, he's going to cut the weight and be desperate, but he's going to get a world title shot, maybe, for a payday. No, he's not doing it for any of those. He's managing it as he wants to dominate these 2 weight classes, and that's what Mikey Garcia looks like he wants to do. Now, is Garcia at lightweight and Lomachenko at lightweight? Now, is that a credible fight? And that looks like, we could potentially get that. Now, Garcia, he might be a guy that, spent 2.5 years out of the sport, I think, to clean up and to really guide himself, clean up the contracts and things. And he's been with Top Rank before. And I think Garcia will listen. We'll see if the pricing and things come up right, but we should see that fight. Garcia not only beat Adrian Broner at 140, but he also went up and fought Lipinets. Lipinets, 13-0, had a world championship, so he got the world championship there. But you're talking about a combined record of 45-2 against the guys that he's beat at super lightweight at 140 pounds. So Garcia is just a wrecking ball, and he could come back down. And this is the thing is, if you look at it, Garcia maybe should have been 3, and then you can bump Linares and Rigondeaux down, with Linares being a little bit on the slide, and then Rigondeaux, just being, Rigondeaux. We'll get into him in a little bit if we get a chance here. But maybe Garcia should have been 3 all along. Garcia heads may say that he should be 1 or 2, I guess, or 1. But I think we got the top 3 guys down. So how far you move Linares down? I mean, Linares knocked Vasyl Lomachenko down. He got stopped by a liver shot. Got stopped with the right punch at the right time after 30 minutes of fighting this guy. Even the judges' cards had it even. So how far can you bump Linares down? But does he go like right to 4, or are we gonna move him down a little bit? Let's reserve Linares a little bit and see if we got any other guys that are rising, so that we can go ahead and stick them in there. Just with Rigondeaux, I'm taking him off the list completely. We're gonna leave Linares on here somewhere. We'll see. We'll see where he pops up. But just I think Linares fought a good fight, and a lot of people thought he was on the slide. But he's a real pro. At 32 now, we're probably past the best of Linares. We're not going to see him get much better. Maybe it's just here's the thing too. He's a guy that he's trained in Tokyo, London, Vegas. He's got resources. He moves himself to where he needs to be to get training and fighting and stuff. And he seems bright. High ring IQ, just everything. That's why I had him so high up on my list. And at the end of the day, he lost to Lomachenko after 10 rounds, but it was even. It was an even fight, So yeah, I don't think we can get Linares in. Now Rigondeaux is a different story, because Rigondeaux, I think, as deep as his game was, Rigondeaux was also a guy that at the end, because of his success and because of his age, and expectations, just a weird social something happens with these Cuban guys that come out of Cuba where, if you're on the national team at that level, in Cuba you probably lived pretty good. You were well taken care of, and you didn't need anything. And, life was so completely different back then. And to come here with the economics, you immediately think, yeah, $1 million or whatever. And he was just hard to deal with, was Rigondeaux. And I don't know what we ever saw of him was a shadow of what we might have seen, under different circumstances. But I think we had a special athlete there for a little while. By popular demand, I think, he can go home and stay home now. I hope, he's got enough money to sock away, or he can train people, or what the deal is. I worry about him. But, the way he went out with Lomachenko, he was frustrated. It was almost like a no mas type of situation where he was smaller. He had, programmed himself to, counterpunch and hit him with a big punch coming over the top. That never materialized. Lomachenko saw it coming and was not there for any of them. And, once he started missing his counterpunch, it starts to become a frustrating thing for him. And Lomachenko, showed that at this point in time that, Rigondeaux's skills had faded away and that he had, surpassed him, or however that game went. But Rigondeaux didn't have a good showing. He didn't have really many, if any, moments where you said, okay, there's the old savvy Rigondeaux, he's in this game. He really didn't do that. He kind of relied on landing the shot that never came. And, I think he's going to ride off into the sunset from there. I don't know what you do with Guillermo Rigondeaux for his career at this point. He's still not the kind of guy a bunch of British fighters are going to bring in just to try to put him on their resume or whatever. He's still going to be very dangerous, especially if he's getting some money or a payday, or he's getting a sock away, stuff like that. But I don't think he's going to get that chance. I think, he's going to wind up feeling insulted by future money offers. And, is it worth it at this point? And I think Rigondeaux becomes a sad case of boxing tragedies, or whatever you want to call them in the modern era, And just I don't think we saw everything from him that we could have, and I worry like in the future, like I said, hopefully he gets a job as a boxing instructor and a coach with some team, national team or something like that. I mean, he's elite of the elite, and I don't know if he's been treated exactly that way in the boxing world. When he got given chances, they were kind of always slanted a little bit against him, and his ego didn't rub well with that stuff. So it was just a bad set of circumstances that we got Rigondeaux as a pro. But hats off to Lomachenko. At the end of the day, I can't give Lomachenko that much credit because it was a 2 weight class jump for Rigondeaux. That's unusual in the modern era of boxing. Just people don't do that. It just goes to show, where he was in his career and how confident he was. Because, I mean, to say, yeah, I'll fight Lomachenko moving up to, who's going to do that? Rigondeaux at least went into that fight very confident. It fell apart for him fast in the ring, but he went into the fight very confident, and that's telling. So, anyway. So Rigondeaux's going to come off the list. So that asks the question, who is number 4? Is there somebody who's burst onto the scene? Is there somebody, over the last little bit of time that has scored that major victory or something like that? I'm Miguel Iturrate. We've been talking shoot, and that's the first half of the podcast. Let's get through the rest of this pound for pound list here in a little bit. And I'll be right back after this short break. Hey, Miguel Iturrate here, and I'm back, and we're going to talk some more shoot about the boxing pound for pound list, and I'm going to do a big jump here, and I'm going to tell you what's going on here. I don't think he's going to last on the list, and I'm talking about Sor Rungvisai. I'm going to move Sor Rungvisai up to number 4, and the reason for it is I had him at number 9 before, and, Rungvisai at 9, was 9 enough respect for having vanquished Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez? And, not once but twice. And that's, I think, what Rungvisai is getting the props for here with the big jump here. Because what he did afterwards, he took on Juan Francisco Estrada at the Englewood Forum. Now, Estrada is a nemesis of Gonzalez. He's been chasing him for a long time, and you're talking about another guy, high-level fighter, a guy who, maybe should have been on my original top 10 instead of, you choose your pick, instead of Rigondeaux if you didn't like him, or instead of Linares if you didn't know who he was. Estrada's a top guy. And at the end of the day, Estrada's not Chocolatito, so Rungvisai had to show some wrinkles to his game to not get lost here among another top-level guy bringing what he does to the table with a game plan aimed right at him. And Estrada's a bright guy. I like the way Estrada fights. And, Estrada took a majority decision loss to Rungvisai. It means Rungvisai, 117, 111, 115, 113 in favor of Rungvisai. One judge had it even. So Rungvisai is, now taking out a completely different guy. That he's not just the guy who beats Chocolatito, you know what I mean? He's now taking out a second top-tier guy in Estrada. So I'm going to bump Rungvisai up to number 4 just for the props of it, And then before we get into the bottom half of my list, at number 5, I'm going to also do a jump. So I'm going to move my 9 and 10 guys up to 4 and 5. And my number 10 guy before was Gennady Golovkin. And, I'm not convinced that, Golovkin can fight a bigger guy who puts pressure on him and has him going working off his back foot and stuff like that. And, that's kind of a requisite to be in the pound for pound list, is that you can do everything. But the mental pressure that Golovkin has been under in the last year, or basically since the Alvarez tie, he's got the bell rings at round 12. Golovkin thinks, I did it. I beat Alvarez. Somehow this slippery, dirty tie gets messed in there. And ever since then, Golovkin's a guy carrying the weight of boxing on his shoulders. The time his time frame is getting smaller. He's, in his late 30s now. If you count over 35, he's in late 30s, and his window's closing. So now there's more and more delays. Do you want to get Alvarez back in the ring? Do you need to cash that payday? Of course you want it. And then at the end of the day, you're 38-0-1 right now, not 39-0 because of Alvarez. You kind of want to correct that, but Golovkin. So he signs for the rematch here. It's Cinco de Mayo. He's getting the payday that he deserves, and it falls apart because of Alvarez. And now, everything gets amplified. Alvarez doesn't get a year's suspension. He gets 6 months. He gets to clean up his knee, maybe clean up his system if he's on some stuff, and that lets him come in clean to a fight around September or November, by the end of the year. And then Golovkin's just 6 months older heading into that fight. So it all works out in Alvarez's favor when you consider it, the suspension. Just more delays for Golovkin. So Golovkin goes into a fight against an unsung opponent, a guy they dug up, off of the retiree pile, basically. I mean, Martirosyan's not a bad little fighter. But he's had his day, and he's was in a different weight class. And at the end of the day, basically what happened is Golovkin came out a little flat, didn't do anything in the first round. But late in the first round, Martirosyan hit him, and you could see it in the ring, and you could see the exchange when Martirosyan hits him. Golovkin backs up and looks at him and says, "Hey, nice shot." And he gave him his credit for the nice shot. And that's, basically what he did, because then he came out in round 2 and killed him. And, he had 300 amateur fights. He's undefeated as a pro. Why would I question his mind? It's just that the pressure, it's kind of like, the ocean, where the lower you go, you're carrying more and more pressure, multiplied. Because of vast size, and that's the kind of pressure. Now you're in the Saul Alvarez's and HBO pay-per-views being canceled, and Golovkin's name being tossed around. Is like, is he dominant? Does he have a signature opponent? Everything he hears now has that negative little slant, and there was good reason for that. The added pressure of all this to have an effect, and it might have shown in the Martirosyan fight if he had a flat fight, but he came out and he destroyed him, and he showed, I'm still here, I'm still as mentally tough as I've ever been, so I'm going to go ahead and just show this guy. We'll see what he does next. We'll see if he goes for the Alvarez rematch, and if he could dispatch Alvarez, then you're talking about Golovkin really getting into heady territory there. I don't know what he does for his next fight, but if he stays away, if from Andre, moves up to fight Andre Ward, who returns or something ridiculous like that, Golovkin's going to be favored for if he gets by Alvarez somehow. So I'm moving him up to 5, even though he's kind of against my skill package requirements for the pound-for-pound list. But at the same time, I really do think he deserves a reward for everything he's had to put up with as well. It shows basically a complete fighter, mentally. What that leaves me as, I'm going to put Linares at 6. And then from there, we can leave my list the same, where it would be Santa Cruz at 7, Gary Russell Jr. at 8, and Carl Frampton at 9, which leaves us the mysterious number 10 spot to bring in a new guy, basically the replacement for Rigondeaux. And let's go dig deep into the list here. I'm not sure which way we're going to go here. There's going to be a couple of popular guys in there, but we're going to go ahead and leave the list as I stated through number 9. And then we're going to see here, what do we do? Do we put Anthony Joshua on the list? Anthony Joshua is going to be on every one of the pound-for-pound lists that I look at. I didn't have Klitschko on any of my lists, and I don't believe in heavyweights on my pound-for-pound list, just because their skill set is limited because of their size. They're just not as dynamic or as fast or, able to use their things. I think you start to see the slowdown when you compare cruiserweight Alexander Usyk to Vasyl Lomachenko. They're very similar in styles, But, Lomachenko's so much more quick and so much more fluid, and just the speed differences and things. No, I'm not going to put Anthony Joshua on my top pound for pound list. And, that could be a cut. I can understand. Do I put Estrada there off a loss? It's hard to move a guy in off a loss. And I did mention him as a guy who kind of, is a top guy. And I think he didn't really lose any credibility losing to, Rungvisai. It was a majority decision, and he put up a hell of a fight. So it's a situation there where, who's going to be the mystery man here? And I'm going to, I'm not going to pussyfoot around it anymore. There's no reason to surprise anybody. I don't think it's going to be that big of a surprise. But I'm going to go ahead and move Errol Spence Jr. up. And Errol Spence is going to be number 10 on my list now. And, he maybe should have been on here when he won the world title, And the reason for that is he went to England and he beat a good champion there. And Kell Brook is a good fighter who would have been on this list of mine a couple of years ago. Yes, he's a welterweight. He's had, Brook is a weird guy because I don't think, as good as he was, and I think he was the number 1 welterweight in the world for a long time, but as good as he was, I don't know that we really got ever the best Kell Brook that we could have ever seen. And the reason I say that is because, he had some inactivity. He's got, some injuries, some weird injuries. He got stabbed in the leg. He had some time off after that. And it just is a situation where I don't know that we got all that. And then there was the whole, going to fight Golovkin. And then, you give him props for that. And he hopefully cashed some money in for that and stuff. But then after the Golovkin fight, it becomes the kind of thing where, the cash in the payday, was he complacent. Again, there's been a lot of talk about fights, not a lot of fighting. He comes back, he faces Errol Spence Jr., and, Errol Spence Jr. knocked him out in the 11th. So he put up a fight. Spence was ahead by a couple of points, 95-94 on one of the judges' cards, 97-92, 96-93. So Spence had already come on in the fight, and because he was stronger at the end, even if it had gone the distance, Spence was there in England to take his belt. And that, Golovkin into Spence Jr., should those have been the 2 fights back-to-back, that we were seeing there? I'm not, I kind of feel like we were cheated from seeing Brook fight some of the other guys in the welterweight division because of the, moving on to fight Golovkin and then the time around that it took to heal injuries and things like that. So he's come back, he fought, and he won at 154 pounds. That might be the right way for him for a little bit. But the time on his window when he was at his best may be closing. And Brook is a guy who still has maybe the Amir Khan fight to cash in. And hopefully we'll see if that goes down. There'll be a lot of, talk and nonsense going on there if that happens. But what I want to do is let's credit Errol Spence Jr. because, Spence Jr., he came back after Kell Brook and he fought Lamont Peterson and he went to the Barclays Center to do it. Peterson, a savvy veteran, he stopped Peterson in 7, It's hard to argue with a guy like Spence Jr. who's coming on. He's in the cherry weight class, 23-0 with 20 knockouts. He's 28 years old. He's a house. He's huge. He was bigger than Brook, and Brook was huge, at welterweight. So much so that, at 154, he's looking comfortable. And, Spence Jr., in the foreseeable future, in June, he gets Carlos Ocampo. Ocampo, an undefeated fighter coming up, to challenge for the world title. But, the nice thing for Spence Jr. is he's fighting this fight's in Dallas. It's going to be at the Star, the Ford Center at the Star in Frisco, Texas, right outside of Dallas. And that's his hometown. And so he's getting the championship deserved. They've been putting him at the Barclays Center. He's getting Showtime spots. So the Premier Boxing Champions has got a champion that they're proud of here in Errol Spence Jr. So, I'm going to move Errol Spence Jr. up into the number 10 spot on the Talk and Shoot pound for pound list. And, that's going to do now, before we pussyfoot through 8 and 9 spots where I left Gary Russell Jr. and I left Carl Frampton, let's talk a little bit about those guys because, Gary Russell Jr. is scheduled to fight actually this weekend coming up. So we'll see, if he, a loss will knock him off the list. And he knows that. At 28-1, his only loss comes to Vasyl Lomachenko. That was by majority decision. That looks, better and better on his resume at all times. He's taking on Joseph Diaz, undefeated out of the Golden Boy stable, coming to Maryland, fighting Gary Russell Jr. in, his backyard. It's a step for Diaz. It's a step-up fight. Gary Russell, though's got, problems with his Q score, and that's basically it. I think the way the guy boxes and stuff, he comes from a fighting family. He's bringing his brothers along. I think they got a nice story there on the competition level there, and I think he needs to be more in the spotlight. I think he's a guy that his boxing's going to back it up, and so we'll see. He's favored against Diaz. It is a good, tough fight that's coming up for him, so we'll see, when that goes down. And then in terms of Carl Frampton, now we got Frampton here. He's still got the Santa Cruz fight, and that's, against another one of my top 10 guys here. So we got Frampton, Santa Cruz, 3 sort of, hanging over our heads now. And, but thus far this year, or since the Santa Cruz fight, he went home, he's fought a couple times in Belfast, got back to his roots sort of thing. He's changed trainers a couple times. Last fight, he beat Nonito Donaire. Donaire, a strong, name for his resume, that's for sure. So Frampton really hasn't done anything to fall off the list other than the fact, is he starting to show some cracks? I don't know, against Horatio Garcia there, he really didn't look very good at times, Garcia's a guy he probably should have had a little bit less, trouble with than he did. He won that fight 98-93, 97-93, 96-93. So, you can take from that what it is, but he's staying on the list. So we got Frampton 9, Russell Jr. 8, Santa Cruz 7, Linares 6, Golovkin, Rungvisai, Garcia, Lomachenko, and Crawford, and Errol Spence coming in at 10. Those are the top 10 pound for pound. Those are the top 10 pound for pound fighters in the world today. I'm Miguel Iturrate. We've been talking shoot, and this has been Talking Shoot Podcast number 62.